Hey, Big Love fam. Welcome to Superfreq. This is a high vibe podcast, y'all, exploring all things frequencies, how they govern form, shape our realities, and are the key to living from your full potential. It's non-woo convos about super woo shit, unpacking what I call the science of self, from body and soul literacy to the power of understanding vibration, higher consciousness, quantum physics, and spiritual psych. Let this podcast become a resource for you on your journey to self-mastery. If you're curious and ready to free your mind, unlock the body, and truly become limitless, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Tally. This is Superfreq, awakening for the next gen. Let's go. Hey, everybody. So this week's episode is going to be a little lecture on how to connect to your higher self and the mechanics around it, taken off of a group meditation that I did a while back. I hope you guys enjoy. Let's jump in. So I want to talk about the concept of what a higher self is first, and then how we outgrow them. The highest expression of ourself is where we become derived from source. It's our initial separation from source. Like the moment we just go bing, we become a fragment and we start to make our initial descent into embodiment. At that spark of divination is where our higher self begins. And it is all knowing, all being, multidimensional, knows all, is all, in the highest expression of who you are, infinite. Can never clarify, can never be perfected. And it's just infinite, infinite, infinite creation at multiple harmonic, multiple sound, dimensionality, etc. What we experience here is a compression of that light. It's very, very bright light. We really experience just a very dense, compressed version of that. So you can imagine if you can expand into the multiverses and then you have to actually deduce your light into a three-dimensional form, it's incredibly distorting. So the idea here is to awaken, clear the patterns so you can actually take in broader bandwidth, right? Broadband frequency, all the programming that we see around in this simulation that we're living in, exactly that. You want to be able to program yourself and deprogram yourself at will even more, right? You want to be able to create instantly, these kinds of things. Become the master of your reality is about understanding how programs work and how creation works. And everyone has different codes, different contracts, different consciousness, the 3 C's. You guys all have individual agreements and codexes and are at different levels of consciousness. And that's wonderful. When we derive ourselves, right, when we individuate ourselves from pure source, our most authentic expression is when we are singular, when we are really congruent deeply in our bodies. Most of us don't really have a relationship with our higher self. We don't really know what that feels like, what that means. Sometimes we feel like we do, sometimes we don't. And then a lot of judgment comes in because 200,000 years ago, I've been doing that a lot this week, is deleting a worship gene. So what I mean by that is when former civilizations came in, beings came in, they started augmenting our DNA. This has just happened. This is pre-religion, pre-biblical, pre-Abrahamic. It's very, very ancient text, beyond, even around Sumerian times, old tablets that have been depicted over time. But there was literally a code that was a worship gene. It's the best way I can describe it. It's a sequence that is of disempowerment, of servitude, of, in order for me to have my power, I have to give up X. It happened a really, really long time ago. Optimized, it is of the highest service, a conduit between the worlds, in divine will. Fantastic, right? It's an altruism pattern at its best. At its worst, it's a complete and total servitude, control, enslavement pattern. And it's coming through religion And it has come in to separate us from our higher knowing, our higher self, right? Our oversoul, which is the same way as saying really bright light, right? More knowledge, more codes, things like that. These particular algorithms of control, disempowerment, want to keep you in your lower nature. They want to keep you deep in the emotional body, deep in fear, deep in sacrifice, deep in control, and in a lot of sexual energy, distorted sexual energy in your animal nature, because it keeps you in polarity. The more polarized you are, the more separate you are, the less that you see. You stay distracted. So the mastery is when we start to reconcile our own polarities. If you kind of imagine there's a triangle, and at the base of that triangle, at opposite ends, is really low density, extreme levels of polarity. As you awaken, you start to come into the center of that triangle and you start to spiral up. So you kind of spiral up and you go move towards the center of that triangle. And at the very top of that triangle is a plane. It's like a mental, emotional body. They merge there. And it's access to the void. And when you merge your emotional, mental bodies is when you really pop into the being in your timeless self. So you're really popping into your highest expression of yourself and moving in towards, you're at the kind of at the bottom of your oversoul, if you will. This is where you get a lot of access here. This is where we're supposed to be at. We're supposed to start there. But we've been so dumbed down that we're at the very bottom of this hierarchy and shot on opposite ends. So the lower nature, when we're moving through the lower nature of our body, it's really, really dense because we have to move through a lot of levels of the emotional body. That's why I work so much on the nervous system, on regulating nervous systems, and working on the liver, which is the emotional body essentially, and all of the organs, right? Kidneys, adrenals, pancreas, really understanding digestion, really understanding embodiment, because can be fantastic people who have a lot of access, but not a lot of embodiment. And this is where the disconnect comes in. There's many schools of thought here, but my perspective is your guides are you in different dimensions. Before you get to that level of understanding, you will have very different guides, let's say, right? You may feel like you have a male guide and it's an alien. You may feel like you have animal guides and whatever else. Essentially, they are all you in different dimensions, presenting themselves and representing themselves in a way that will feel nurturing and supportive to you as a guide and a help to you. Because your highest expression of who you are literally wants you to win. And multidimensional beings are rooting for us so hardcore, it's crazy. Earth is really important and you're really important. So when we move in our own resonance, as we gain more clarity, more awareness on our spiritual journey, we will come up to an edge. We will come to many edges, many ceilings. You're kind of at the bottom of the next layer. And in between these layers, again, I'd look at consciousness like a blockchain. In between these layers are like kind of these voids. And people can get kind of stuck in the void between these layers. So it's nice to have some assistance between them until you can get really efficient at popping yourself through either the void or these death spaces that are kind of required to reset the body to get ready for, higher frequencies, higher bandwidths of information. But when you're really making big jumps from, let's say you're going from floor 2 to floor 6, the version of you that's taking you up to to floor 2 sometimes can't take you to floor 6. So I've dismissed a lot of versions of myself, thanked her, and then sent her back to the dimension that she's from. And she takes a lot of information with her if she needs to and neutralizes it, right? Neutralizing contracts into karma neutral. We talk a lot about being carbon neutral here, but we're made of carbon. So we really want to get karma neutral. That's the idea. But, they like to confuse you.
Thanks so much for listening, you guys. Please make sure to leave a review and follow the fun on social media because that's how it works in this world. And in the meantime, get your freak on. I'll see you in the next session.